I've just finished doing our taxes, right up to the point where I needed to include my wife's data. I mean, her business information. I told her I was going to be doing taxes soon and I needed her income, expenses, and so on. When I'd done all I could, I reminded her that I needed it, and my wife was supposed to finish her business before I did my taxes. If I remind her of anything, she gets angry. It's irrational. She freaks out even if I'm just reminding her of something. After 3 weeks, I took her laptop and looked to see if she had any spreadsheets or notes. She didn't have the software, but her messaging app was open. I could have been a good husband and deleted it, but I was angry at her, so I decided to see if I could find some gossip about her friends. I didn't expect to find a message from one of her colleagues. It seemed like the workers were trying to convince her to meet him for sex. I reread all the way to the beginning and found that for over a month, he had been working her pretty hard. She was accepting of his attention and in some ways encouraging him without shutting down communication. Every message exchange I read made me more and more angry. So after reading the last message where she told him his dirty talk made her wet, I sent him the next message on her behalf. Let's meet up, get a room at the N6 motel, and I'll be there at 3:00. I hit send and was about to get ready for battle. But I panicked. If she has an app on her phone, she'll get a notification when he replies. I ran upstairs and took a deep breath. When I saw that she was napping, her phone was on the table, so I grabbed it, brought it up to her face to open it, and rushed into the kitchen. I opened the app and saw that it had he replied at last, "You won't be able to walk when I'm done with you." It was clear he was a romantic at heart. I deleted the last message from my phone, shut down my computer, and called my friend Axel. "Hey Johnny, what's going on?" "Axel, I need you to meet me at the N6 motel at 4 to 3. I'm going to put a stop to this. I'll see you soon." I laughed at his agreement. That's why I called him. He was my roommate when I was a kid. We used to do some crazy things. He was a scandalous character, while I was a chatterbox. I could wriggle my way out of any situation with chatter, but Axel could beat the snot out of anyone. His name was Donald, but he didn't think that sounded tough enough. He picked Axel by looking. At the list of car parts, he's one of my most loyal friends. He's perfect for what I need today. I took her cell phone with me in case he texted her and left her dozing. I'll talk to her about it later in the motel parking lot. I saw Axel's truck. I suddenly realized that I had no idea what the guy looked like, but that was solved when he came out with his phone to his ear. Her phone rang on the seat of my car. I punched Axel with my fist and walked over to follow. The guy in the room asked, "What are we doing?" I told him to stay away from her and punched him a couple of times. We laughed and caught up with him as he was opening the door. Axel kicked the door open and I ran in, surprising my friend. The guy had just enough time to say, "What's up?" before my fist smashed into his jaw. It hurt a lot, and it looked like I broke a finger. Axel squeezed past me and kicked him in the shin. Axel really hit him hard because he didn't move from his spot. Axel picked him up and threw him on the bed. "Hey, Axel," slapped him. "What do you guys want? Take my wallet here." "Shut up," I yelled and threw a punch, making him flinch. "You think it's okay to make love to a married woman? Oh, you're her husband. I'm going to keep your ass in jail until you're 60. You stupid." Axel smiled and pulled a set of brass knuckles out of his pocket. His head bounced as far back as it could, and stretched out his arms. Okay. I'm sorry if you leave now. I won't say a word to the cops. Just walk away. I'm not talking to your wife again." I shook my head. Axel smiled and cracked his knuckles. What else do you want?" I saw the urine darken on the front of his jeans. I saw that. I was going to punch him between the legs. Now there's a puddle in there. "Do you see what you've done? You've ruined my friend's fun. How are you going to make it up to him?" "I'm sorry. Look, what do you want? Where do you want me to go out naked?" Axel and I nodded in unison. It wasn't the first time we'd gotten revenge on someone. He shouted and headed for the door. Axel followed, and I grabbed his wallet and keys. "Run home, you sack of garbage," I said. "Ooh," he moaned. Axel slammed his fist into the door, leaving a dent in it. He ran away, leaving us laughing. "How's your arm?" I asked. "Dopey dude, that hurt like hell." I looked at my finger. It was swollen. "I think I broke a joint or something." "Come on, dude, I'll keep you company in the emergency room." X-rays showed the finger wasn't broken, just dislocated and needed to be put back in place. A shot of local anesthetic hurt like hell, but after a couple of hours I was out of there with my finger in a splint. I think the doctor's lecture was more excruciating than the finger. He called me an idiot a couple of times and told me that grown men don't fight. I nodded and agreed for him to shut up and walked out of there satisfied. I left my wife to it and went into the house to find Meg already up and annoyed. "Have you seen my phone? I can't find it anywhere." I tossed her the phone and went into the kitchen to get a beer. I just listened to her rant about why I had my phone and drank the beer in one gulp. I interrupted her with a burp and opened another box of wine. I continued to ignore her and went into the living room and turned on the highlights of the golf tournament. I didn't know what it was about golf commercials, but I always felt like I needed to buy new clubs. I mean, when I watched any other commercial, I wasn't going to buy what they were advertising, but golf clubs must have been my kryptonite. She shouted, "Are you going to tell me what the hell happened to your hand and why you had my phone all day?" I sighed and pointed at the TV. Tiger commented, "Can you be quiet for a minute? Forget about Tiger Woods." I paused the TV and turned. To her I said, "Tell me about when Burns." "He's just some jerk at work," she replied. I shook my head. "Listen to me. If I'm quoting correctly, oh, Wan, you make me so wet when you write things like that. Well, anyway, it's pretty close. You went through my phone." I gave her the middle finger with the tire and nodded. "Yeah, I guess you are." "Oh, Johnny, you stupid." "What did you do?" "I dealt with good old Wan. Now it's your turn, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do with you yet." As she was about to speak, the doorbell rang. "Let's take a quick break," I suggested, heading for the door. I opened it to find two of our local police officers, one of whom was my friend Jimmy. He was with a guy I knew from my bowling league. "Hey guys, come on in," I said, leading them into the house. Jimmy said, "John, we're sorry, but we're here on official business." "Hi, Meg," I replied, sitting down and taking a sip of my beer. "Have a seat, guys. I'm not going to fight with you." They sat down. Jimmy carried on. "John, we picked up a naked man running down 7th Street. His name is Juan Burns. Do you know him?" I just shrugged and said, "Well, not that I know him. I met him once, though." I gave my wife a little wink as she watched this exchange of remarks, and she was pretty shocked. He said, "You and another guy beat him up and made him walk home from the motel naked." I just laughed and said, "Yeah, well, you know me, Jimmy." He laughed and said, "Tell me what happened to your arm." I said, I tripped over I must have misjudged the distance when I tried to cushion my fall with the garden hose." My wife looked at me like I was crazy and said, "Yes, I left the hose, and the clumsy husband tripped right over it. Do you have any idea why he might blame you for his current situation?" Another officer asked me about it. I think his name is Kevin, but I couldn't remember exactly, and I felt uncomfortable about it. Meg spoke up, saying that he'd been sexually harassing her for about a month. "Jimmy, I think he may be trying to isolate Johnny." Jimmy nodded. "Did you know about this, John?" I shook my head and stared at Meg. "No, but Meg and I are going to talk about our secrets." "At me, yeah, but the thing is, we're so overworked and understaffed that it might go unresolved. We need to fry bigger fish, you know." I patted him on the back. "I hear you give Jill a kiss." "Sure, you just keep your nose cleaner, please." I nodded and closed the door as they walked to their car. "Jesus, Johnny, you're lucky you're friends with most of the guys on the force." I shrugged and went back to the TV so I could still listen to Tiger's interview. Our town is small, with less than 5,000 people. I'd say there are about 5,000 people in the city, depending on which census you look at, and which signs you see on the city limits. I actually knew most of the police officers and their partners. We all grew up together, or I was friends with their brothers, sisters, or cousins. Like I said, I could talk about just about anything. I turned around when the doorbell rang again. Jesus, Meg. It's like Grand Central Station in here today. Axel squeezed in with a case of chilled Molson's. "It better be cold, dude." I just opened the last. I said I don't buy warm beer. I wanted to punch him for calling me that, but I slowed down. He was the only man who could get away with kicking me in the balls like that. Not because I was afraid to fight him, but because I knew he was just trying to piss me off. Besides, my middle finger on my striking hand was in a tire. He put the beer in the fridge, and I wondered what he pulled out of there to find a place. Meg is bound to get pissed. He came back into the room and looked intently. At a stunned Meg, he handed me the bottle. "Who were those blue guys who were leaving when I pulled up?" "Jimmy and I think Kevin. How's Jill and the kids?" "I don't know," I replied. He questioned me about our fun this afternoon. "Since you're still sitting here, we're doing okay," he said, smirking. "We're fine," I replied. "If there aren't any cameras in the motel, I didn't see any. Neither did I." He looked at Meg and frowned. "So you're looking for an extra man, huh? Your buddy has about half as much. As your father, you should choose something better next time." "I'm not looking for a partner," she yelled. We laughed, and she ran out of the room. "What are you going to do with her?" I told him the whole story back at the emergency room. He told me to either kick her out or make her meet me at the door every day. I liked the latter option better. "Oh, Tiger's on. Take a break." I laughed and said, "No problem, Tiger." He'd been dodging questions for 10 minutes. "Are you coming back or retiring?" "The room, Meg. Can you get me another beer, please?" Axel asked, shaking the empty bottle. Meg was about to tell him where to stick the bottle when she saw the knuckles he was molding on his fingers. She groaned. "You guys are dumber than a bag of hammers." He looked at me and said, "These are brand new. I wanted to give them a test run with this chick today." "Put 'em away, buddy. She's not impressed." I smirked. "I just wanted to emphasize," he sighed, putting them in his pocket. "She needs to know that we're not going to put up with her cheating. Technically, she wasn't cheating," I said, knowing it was weak. Not yet. Not yet. Just don't tell me when you start making love to her. I'll have to put you down. I hope you do. If it ever happens, we could joke all we wanted, but I had no idea what I was going to do. Axel's presence just delayed the inevitable fight I knew was coming after a few beers. He stood up and said, "All right, brother. I can see that you need me out of here so you can talk to that cheating." He stood up and saw my anger. He backed off. He said, "Cook, she's a cheater until she proves otherwise. And you haven't gotten proof yet. If you need me or my couch, you know where to find me." I gave him a hug, and he walked out the door. It was good to have friends, whether they were or not. She walked into the kitchen and asked, "Where's mine?" I pointed to the freezer. She sighed and sat down next to me. "I've never had sex with him," I replied, still eating. "You didn't have to beat him up. I hit him once. That's not beating him up. Why are you acting like it's something big?" I threw my fork down, which made her jump. "That's what you think you were doing?" I asked. "Okay, let's see what you think of me doing the same thing." I picked up my phone. I called Meg's sister. She was younger and prettier. She teased me mercilessly, knowing I was 100% faithful to my wife. It was fun for her to let me look up her skirt or under her shirt. She even bit my ear on the dance floor at a wedding. She was trying to piss me off. "Hey, Carla, could you talk dirty to me for a couple minutes? I want to get hard." Carla happily picked up on it and hummed something wild about her body and how I was targeting her. "You hole, give it to me," Meg shouted. She took the phone out of my hands and spoke into it. I imagine her sister carried on with the obscenities because Meg turned green and freaked out. I laughed. Meg was so upset, saliva was running down her chin as she looked down at me and breathed heavily. "What were you so angry about?" I wasn't going to make love to her. I shrugged. "You seem to be acting like it's nothing. It's not the same thing you did. You did it on purpose." I laughed and took a bite of steak. "So you let someone talk obscenities to you. You got a bit carried away, so what makes it okay? Do you believe what you're saying, or do you just think I'm an idiot?" "I didn't let him do anything," she screamed. "Yeah, okay. Show me the message where you told him to stop because it's not appropriate for married women to have these conversations." I told him on the phone. She sighed. "Yeah, that was his message last night. When did you talk to him?" "Probably not today. I don't know. I guess I meant I was going to tell him to stop lying while he's behind me. You're making it difficult for me to stay calm. I'm close to kicking you out of the house. You have to convince me why I shouldn't throw you out on the street and divorce you. I'll give you an hour to think about it. I don't want to ruin my dinner." I think she realized I meant what I said. She turned and walked out of the kitchen. In situations like this, it's hard to know what the right decision is. I finished my dinner, grabbed another beer and realized how late it was. By the time I'd finished my dinner and was heading to the hayloft, it was getting close to time for me to leave. I walked into the living room and didn't see Meg, so I sat down on the couch and turned on the news while a blonde girl was telling me about truckers blocking the roads. Meg walked in. "Oh, I knew she meant it," I said. "She'd never called me John." I looked at her and said nothing. I got caught up in the excitement of someone being interested in me and didn't stop them in time. "How do I know you won't succumb to his charms eventually?" She sat down and cried. All her former indignant anger vanished. "Honey, you have to believe me. I know you don't trust me, but trust me. I've never lied to you. I don't even know that for sure. How do I know you haven't had an affair before and this is just another?" She lowered herself to the floor in front of me, kneeling down. She rested her head in my lap and said, "I'm sorry. How can I fix this? I'll do anything." I laughed. "I'm glad you find it funny," she moaned. "I feel bad." I said, "Axel gave me an idea. How could you make it up to me to regain my trust?" She said, "Damned if I know." I said, "Here's what I think. Take the locks off your phone. Give me all the passwords. Let me look at your correspondence. Maybe that'll help." She slid up and put her arms around me. "You'll see there are no other men there." Then she frowned. "Well, you'll see. I tell my girlfriends things you might not like. I'm sorry, but I have to vent with someone when you piss me off. You'll see that I sometimes call you in, but you'll also see how much I tell my girlfriends I love you. Fair enough. Lord knows I complain about you to my friends sometimes too." We kissed for a while and then she asked, "Darling, what did Axel suggest I do to make it up to you?" I smiled. "Come on, get on your knees. You can get started on that right now." The end.